Friends, I give you the next Prime Minister of Cornwall and the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Jeremy Corbyn!
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Heartlands, and thank you all for being here today. And what a lovely day it is too. It's a good thing we weren't holding the rally yesterday, isn't it? And can I ask you to put your hands together and thank Dennis Slim, our signer, for making sure that everybody can understand what's going on here today. And also all those party staff and volunteers that have put this rally together today with the fencing to make sure that everybody can see and hear safely what's going on at this rally. These things don't happen by accident. They happen when a team comes together and a team works together and a team achieves together. That's what the Labour Party is, and that's what the Labour Party is going to be, and that's how we're going to win the next election. And can I say a big thank you to Candy for what she just said and the work she did when she was the Labour voice in Cornwall. She alone persuaded a very reluctant House of Commons to get Objective 1 funding from the European Union to improve infrastructure all across this county. It was her work that achieved that. And it's going to require Labour voices in the next Parliament from Cornwall to achieve more in the sense of protection of jobs and infrastructure, but more importantly perhaps investment in the future so that the structure and strength of this county is greater than it is at the present time. I want to thank all of you for being here today and all the work that you put in to the general election campaign. Thank Graham and Janet for their campaigns in the two marginals that we came so near to winning. They put up a fantastic fight, and I want to thank all of you for putting up such a fantastic fight in the general election campaign. A number of people have asked me, do I regret not being here during the 6 weeks of the campaign? Yes, I do. I do regret it. The problem was, I did 100 events in the general election campaign. Next time we're going to do it properly. We're going to do more, over more places, all over the country. And so you'll be seeing plenty of Labour all over the country. And whilst I was very proud of the manifesto we produced for the general election, and I pay a huge tribute to all those that put it together in less than 2 weeks, a transformational manifesto that is now already on its 3rd reprint, because so many people want copies of it. I was proud that we put on 3 million votes in the general election across the whole of the UK. The biggest increase in votes for any party since 1945, when Labour achieved that historic victory in that election. 13 million people voted for us in the general election that's just gone. But do you remember the atmosphere when the campaign started? Do you remember the commentariats sitting around in every late-night TV studio, the editorials in every broadsheet, the pundits, the bookies and all the rest of it? They said, no, 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 no. Theresa May's gone on a walk-on. She can't lose the election. But you know what happened? We didn't play by the rules. We went out and took a message to every part of this country that things could, should, and will be done differently in the future. As my good friend John was just saying, austerity is a political choice, not an economic necessity. A political choice made by the Tories and Lib Dems in 2010. They took the choice that public health service workers, council workers, people on housing waiting lists, people on low pay, people looking for a job, people trying to get by, should pay the price of the banking crisis of 2008. And they took the political choice to slash corporation tax and give tax breaks to all the wealthiest in our society. 7 years later, you see the consequences of that. Rising numbers of people sleeping rough, homeless people, more and more children in supersized classes, more and more stress amongst public health workers, amongst council workers and everyone else, and in this county, above all else, the crisis of low pay and poverty of those in work. And so, I think we were absolutely right in the general election campaign to offer something transformational. That we would no longer go on slashing public spending and punishing the poorest in order to pay for the excesses of the wealthiest. We would turn it around and tax at the top in order to benefit those at the bottom. That seems to me a fundamentally basic and sensible principle that we would adopt. And so we put our case to the people of this country. And at all those rallies and events and meetings that happened, I gave one message at the end of it. I said, yes, knock on doors to identify how people are going to vote, so that on polling day itself, you can knock on their doors and politely ask them to vote, and even more politely ask them to vote during the day, and even less politely ask them to vote during the evening. And if it's 9:45 and they still haven't voted, you have my permission to be quite blunt with them, to get out there and actually get the vote out. You have my permission to do that. But I also said, go out and have that conversation with people about the kind of world and kind of society we can live in. And you know what? The combination of the huge support we had on social media, the numbers of people joining in campaigns who had never been involved in politics before, the numbers of people just coming together and talking about the kind of world and society they wanted to live in, mobilised an unprecedented number of older people who hadn't been involved in politics for a very long time, in some cases never, and a lot of young people who saw in the message we were putting forward some degree of hope for them that they wouldn't get an education in order to put themselves in debt. So that message had a great resonance, and I want to thank all of you that worked so hard in the campaign, and in particular those that worked so hard before the campaign started to ensure there was a good level of voter registration. More than 2 million people registered to vote for the first time in that election campaign, and we got a result. We gained a good number of seats, we put on a lot of votes, and we had some great successes, and I pay enormous tribute and congratulations to Luke on gaining a seat in Plymouth. And what a fantastic MP he is. But we need to go further west, from Devon, across the Tamar, into Cornwall, to get Labour MPs in Cornwall. After all, the county that gave this country so much, Trevithick and so many other great scientists and engineers came from here. So much of the tin across the country and across the world came from here. So many of those skills came from here. It needs a Labour government to recognise the vitality and importance of Cornwall and be prepared to invest in it for the future. And a Labour government will do that. As John explained, this week we've been talking a lot about the National Health Service, and I could baffle you all with statistics all afternoon, and we all could. But look at it quite simply. No, don't worry, I won't. Look at it quite simply. What is the National Health Service really about? What is it really about? It's, yes, thank you, health, very good. Very good. Top of the class. It's the idea that all of us matter to each other. That we're here to care for each other and support each other. Because you could say health is a matter for the individual, which is largely what is said in most parts of the United States. that if you get ill and you can afford a doctor, good. If you get very ill and you need a hospital and you can afford it, good. If you get a terrible condition, cancer or something very, very serious like that, and you can afford the very expensive treatment, or you've got the insurance that can cover it, good, fine. Sadly, for the rest, there is nothing. No. There is no treatment. There is no care. There is merely an early death. So you can have an American health system which actually costs more than any other health system anywhere in the world, and still leaves tens of millions of ordinary Americans with no health care whatsoever. Or you can adopt a different principle, the one that we in the Labour movement have always held, that health care is a human right, is a matter for all of us. That is why the National Health Service was founded in the first place. And so people accuse us of talking too much about the National Health Service. As far as I'm concerned, you can never talk too much about the National Health Service, because what an important principle and achievement it actually is. Because it gives everyone health care at the point of need with no charge attached to it. But it's under threat. It's under threat from underfunding. It's under threat from privatisation. It's under threat from an internal market. It's under threat from contracting out. And it's under threat from a lack of the very necessary investment in all the other services that go with it. John and I visited Royal Cornwall Hospital this morning. Very impressed with all the staff we met. Their absolute dedication to caring for people all across the county. And we thank them for their work. And they also explained the special needs in the sense that the normal population of Cornwall is, 400,000? The summer population is closer to 1 million. All of those people need to know there's a hospital there to care for them, and need to know that the community hospitals are also there to support and care for them. But what came across and comes across with every hospital visit we do is this: the hospitals do their very, very best. Their problem is the social care system is not sufficient to deal with the needs of so many patients coming out of hospital, so they stay in hospital longer than they should, and the mental health services are inadequately funded, and too many people going through a mental health crisis end up being taken into an A&E department in a hospital anywhere in the country. We believe in parity of esteem. The one good thing, and it's probably the only good thing that's there in the Health and Social Care Act, and that was a Labour amendment that got it there, is the parity of esteem between physical and mental health. Yeah. With John Ashworth as Secretary of State and the Labour government, there will be real parity of esteem between physical and mental health, and proper funding of it. We will make sure that is the case. But there's also public health that goes with it, because public health is part of it. If we pollute the air, if our children are growing up in damp, overcrowded accommodation, if they're not being properly fed, if they're not being able to live in facilities that we call good quality, then clearly their health is going to suffer. Health is a service, is a mentality, is a state of mind of all of us. I want our children, as John was saying, to grow up as healthy as anywhere in the world. You achieve that by looking at levels of injustice, inequality, and the disparity between the wealthiest and the poorest in this country. And I say to you this: it shouldn't be that the wealthier you are, the longer you live. It should be the healthier you are, the longer you live, and we make people healthy to achieve that. And so, after just over a year of Theresa May as Prime Minister, yes, it's only a year and a bit. It's all right, it's okay. She won't be there forever, don't worry about that. There are now 4 million people waiting for elective surgery in our hospitals, and there are problems all across. And so what would our priorities be? To invest, of course, in our health service, to reward NHS staff properly by lifting the pay cap and allowing NHS staff to negotiate properly. And you know what? The first vote we forced in the new Parliament was on the lifting of the public sector pay cap. And what happened? We all voted for the Labour amendment, every one of us. The opposition parties, most of them, voted with us on that. And do you know what happened? The DUP, £1 billion better off because of the money that had been allocated to Northern Ireland but not to the rest of the country by the government, voted with the government in order to keep that pay cap. So the next time Tory MPs tell you how wonderful the health service is, how wonderful emergency service workers are, as they are, when they went to deal with the Manchester bomb, the London Bridge attack, the Finsbury Park attack, the Grenfell Tower tragedy, the Westminster attack. Yes, they are wonderful. They do risk their lives, and we do need them all. Forgive me the crocodile tears, pay them properly as well. So those would be our priorities. But this government thinks it is there for some time to come. I've got news for them. We are touring the whole country this summer. I'm going to a very large number of marginal constituencies all along the south coast, in the Midlands, in Wales, and I'll be doing a big campaign in Scotland at the end of the month, because we gain support all over the country by the message we give of the whole country receiving the benefits of a Labour government. A Labour government that would challenge the economics of austerity and poverty, that would seek a tariff-free trade access to the European markets whilst respecting the result of the referendum, that will invest in our young people and our future. So I want to see a Labour government with a National Investment Bank investing in infrastructure across the country, investing in new sustainable industries, a Labour government that brings in a national minimum wage of £10 an hour, a Labour government that invests in our children for their future. But I also want to say this to you. We're not just a political party. We brought together because we believe in something together. We believe in the goodness of people, we believe in humanity, we believe in people working together. The National Health Service is the principal example of what we believe in. And so, when we say invest in education, it's investing in our future, in the creativity and ambitions of all of our children. And so that means properly funding the schools. It means making sure the classes aren't too big so the children can learn properly. It means preschool facilities and preschool social opportunities for children to learn to play together before they learn to be in school together. It's a big message for them in the future. And to make sure those children are properly fed whilst they're in school, so that every child in primary school will get a free school meal under a Labour government in every part of the country. But whilst we learn all the subjects we must learn in school, and that is right, that is good, and those skills can develop, there's also the creativity that I think is so vital and so important. Understanding our own history, understanding the history of the many diverse cultures there are all across the country, understanding the regional histories that are so vital and so important, understanding the history of Cornwall and its contribution to the whole country. But it's also about artistic endeavour. So I'm very proud of the few lines in our manifesto that said we would introduce a pupil arts premium so that every school and every child will be able to learn musical instruments whilst they are in school. I'm very proud of those parts of our manifesto. And so, as a movement, we came together in the darkest days of the 19th century, when there was most brutal and grotesque levels of inequality. Very brave people sacrificed everything to form trade unions, to form the Labour Party, in order to bring about something different and a better world in the future. We learn from the past, but not to relive the past. We learn from the past in order to improve the future and bring people together. So I want to see a Labour government in this country that is dedicated to environmental sustainability in this country and around the world, that supports the Paris Climate Change Accord and doesn't team up with Donald Trump in ignoring it or indeed trying to tear it up. And whilst I don't particularly want to fall out with Donald Trump or anybody else, I simply say to him, it's much better. I understand where your point is, but it's okay. I just say to him quite gently, it's much better to build bridges than build walls. And it's much better to bring about peace by discussion rather than threat, and to bring people along with you. And it's much better for all of us if we have a foreign policy based on peace, on justice and on human rights all around the world, in every country around the world. And I am determined we will achieve those things. And so, we campaign all this summer. We challenge this Tory government in Parliament day in, day out. But when that election comes, we take the campaign to every doorstep, every village and every town centre around the country. And we simply say, there is a choice. Either you have a Tory government dedicated towards the continuation of inequality and injustice in our society, dedicated towards bowing down in front of the rich in order to damage the life chances of the poor, or you have a government that wants to transform things and do things differently. So when we win that election, that isn't the end of the campaign, it's the start of the next campaign. To sustain that government in office, to make sure we do redistribute wealth and income as necessary, and sustain that government on the whole plans it's got on health, on education, on housing, on industry, and so many other things. If you look around the crowd here today, we're all kinds of people, young and old, everything. We're all together here because we're brought together with a series of core values and a demand for social justice that will be delivered for all. Is it right children should live in poverty? Of course it's not.
No.
Do they have to live in poverty? No. Are we prepared to do something about it? Yes, we are. Is it right that so many older people also live not just poor lives, but also lonely lives? Is there not something wrong with our society that leaves so many elderly people in isolation? And is it not wrong the way that women who were born in the 1950s, I salute the WASPy women that are here today. Thank you for coming, thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for the brilliant campaign that you've mounted. I'm getting lots of signals that I've got to go to other places on this big campaign trail we're doing all summer. Don't worry, I'm going everywhere, it's okay. I'm going everywhere. But I want to say to all of you, thank you for coming. Thank you for being together. Thank you to all the trade unions that have supported and stood by our party and helped us throughout the election campaign. And thank you to the more than 200,000 people who gave small donations that funded our general election campaign. Do you know what? An engine of the many is far more powerful than an engine funded by a few very rich and very powerful and very wealthy people. Because we're a party of the people, we're a party of the many, we offer opportunities for the many. That's what our campaign was about. For the many, not the few. That's what the message this summer is, that's what the message this autumn is, and whenever this government finally realises it has no mandate, it has no long-term future, and it makes way for another chance at the ballot box, let's take it with both hands, win those seats, win that election, and get the Labour government elected. Thank you very much.